Chinese diplomat Wang Xining claims being a friend of China is seen as a sin in Australia. Hits at Australian media reporting. China's most high-profile diplomat in Australia has declared that those who are friendly to China will be cherished by their grandchildren, while those who choose to make enemies with Beijing will be cast aside by history. Deputy Head of Mission Wang Xining's comments were made in a recent speech to the Australia-China Business Council in Canberra and were published this week. He sought to portray China as a victim of biased Australian media reporting and ridiculous suspicions about China being a threat. If people are immersed by those negative portraits of China by the major media outlets and brainwashed by the vulgarized and simplified political slogans, how will they understand China? Mr. Wang asked his audience, according to a copy of the speech published on the Chinese embassy's website. It seems that being friendly to China, to be a friend of China, becomes a sin and mistake in Australia. History will prove that it is wise and visionary to be China's friends, and your children and grandchildren would be proud of you. Mr. Wang went on to the audience that those who deliberately vilify China and sabotage the friendship out of their sectoral or selfish interest will be cast aside in history. So pitiful about WHO investigator. The speech is the first major address by a Chinese embassy representative in Australia this year and comes after 12 months of deteriorating diplomatic ties. This is sophisticated, albeit thinly veiled, CCP propaganda, Jeffrey Wilson from the US Asia Center in Perth told the ABC. By arguing there are friends and enemies of China within Australia, the speech deliberately attempts to stoke societal divisions. It's really an extraordinary speech. I cannot think of a PRC diplomat ever giving something so nakedly splittist before, anywhere. Mr. Wang didn't specifically touch on many of the fraught issues with Australia, such as China's trade strikes on at least 7 different types of Australian exports or the federal government's blocking of some Chinese investment on national security grounds. He also didn't mention the prolonged detention of 2 Australian nationals for state security investigations in Beijing, or specifically raise the Australian government's call for an independent inquiry into the origins of coronavirus, which previously prompted diplomatic anger from Beijing. But he did touch on the media coverage of the WHO investigation to Wuhan last month, saying he felt so pitiful for Dominic Dwyer, the only Australian member of the international expert term, claiming he was misquoted in media reporting. Mr. Wang incorrectly claimed a first-hand piece written by Dr. Dwyer for the conversation was only reported in The Guardian. The ABC also published the piece, while he also questioned why so few people believe the claims of China-based British-Australian former policeman Jerry Gray. Mr. Gray has been prominently featured in multiple state media reports for echoing Chinese government talking points and claiming he couldn't see evidence of mass internment centers for ethnic minority Uyghurs during bicycle rides through the far western region. Despite criticizing media coverage, Mr. Wang also did not mention the Chinese government's targeting of Australian journalists for national security investigations last year in response to ASIO raids on Chinese state reporters in Sydney.